Okay. Thank you very much, Zach. Let's take a look at this argument and try to understand from top to bottom. Remember, we're still kind of on the affirmative side, as Zach asked, so we're trying to be friendly to this argument. School libraries should ban the chocolate war. School libraries should set a positive example for their students, and banning the chocolate war will set a positive example for students. Excellent. The Toulmin model is intact, but that by no means means that the discussion is over. Control A, please. Control G. Thank you. We're not into counter-arguments yet. Let's review what we did yesterday. We have some questions to ask. Some questions not to counter, but just for more information. Can somebody remember some of the questions we were asking? Yeah, Josiah. I'm going to call this moral modeling. That means you are demonstrating moral behavior. How does that happen? How does that work? It's an excellent question. It's not necessarily an antagonistic question or a hostile question. It's just a question for explanation. Sarah.
What is inappropriate material in the book?
Good. Excellent. Sarah? Yeah, Shelby. Yeah, what's the causal? Excellent. I'm glad that you brought that up. We've got a causal assertion. Yes, using the big words. Those big words are now owned by you, Shelby, and that makes you more powerful. But somebody help me out here. First of all, what do I mean by a causal assertion? What does Shelby mean by a causal assertion? Josiah? Explaining a cause-effect relationship. What is the cause-effect relationship that is implied in here? We need to uncover it, and Zach needs to explain it in his writing. What's the causal assertion? It's the behavior. Shelby? Draw it out.
Behavior and why.
Sorry. What about the behavior of the children? If they
see this happening in the book, they will imitate that.
Oh, monkey see, monkey do. Love it. There's your causal. There's your principle for your causal assertion. Children imitate. They see this behavior in a book. They act this behavior in a book. That helps me answer Sarah's question. How does banning lead to moral modeling? If they don't see this behavior in a book, they won't act it in real life. If all they see is positive behavior in the library and in their books in class, all they will do is act positively. Hopefully. Don't destroy it yet. Let's understand it before we destroy it. Jake. Excellent. So we're going to fill in some of these questions in just a moment, Jake. Let's make sure that we have all our questions on the board, and then we'll see what answers Zach has. So any other questions that this Toulmin model begs? Got a lot of good ones. How does banning lead to more modeling? What inappropriate material? Of course, we have the regular detailed questions from the information claim, like who banned it, where, what did they try, were they successful or not. Connor, do you have anything else?
Does it like emotionally start?
Oh, good. So we have the children imitate, but the other one is the emotional damage. Does it cause emotional damage? Goosebumps causing nightmares and so on. Excellent job. You've asked the right questions. And this is a review of what we discussed yesterday. So if you have done your Toulmin model, if you've sketched it properly, then you should ask these questions of yourself or show your Toulmin model to somebody else. Doesn't even have to be somebody in this class, and say, this is their argument. What questions do you have? And then they can provide these questions for you as well. Zach, Jake wants you to answer some of these questions. So let's start with the inappropriate material in the book. What sort of inappropriate material does it contain?
It refers to sex a lot and inappropriate language.
Sex, sexual references, and inappropriate language. Excellent. Any detail on that?
I think it said like he looks at girls
Sorry?
like he looks at girls and
Oh, a character looks at girls, he objectifies women, he looks at them as sex objects? Interesting, okay. So we have sexual references and we have profanity. So there's my answer to this question. Sexual references and profanity. Very good. We've kind of answered this one. How does banning lead to moral modeling? If children do not see negative behavior, they will not act negatively. And there's our causal assertion. It doesn't seem that this causal assertion is the one that Connor brings up, the emotional damage. Does anybody, Zach, claim that they're going to read about sexual references and be emotionally harmed? Did you read anything in your research about what they are claiming will happen to these kids who read this book?
they said it was like like what you said is that like negatively trying to like say this like some boys do it and that thing
Excellent. So if I read a book, The Chocolate Ward, and it has 5 instances of the F word in it, suddenly I'm going to start using that word inappropriately. That's the logic there? Very good. Sarah, did you have a comment or a question?
I was just gonna say that.
Right. So it looks like we are dealing with this. Okay. Good enough. Any last questions that we need to ask in order to understand their argument, or you think you got it? They want to take it out of libraries. Bad material, sexual references, profanity. From what I understand of The Chocolate War, and I've read it, but it was years ago, there's also a reference and a direct image of masturbation, if I remember correctly. There are also some relatively violent depictions of hazing and other sorts of bullying activities. So there's a fair amount of controversial and sensitive material. Control C, please. Good. Delete. Control V. Thank you, Zach. All right, tear it apart. Where do we destroy this argument? You have your counter-argument strategies. What are they? Getting same old, same old. Robbie, come on. Self-professed arguer, attack.
I would
Go after the warrant? Okay, so school libraries should set a positive example for their students. You can go after the warrant. So we want to prove that this warrant is false. Now, Robbie, let me make sure you're clear on this and see if you can see how to attack it. I'm saying the school libraries need to show positive behavior. They need to only stock books which show people acting morally, that they only should stock books which show teenagers acting responsibly, and so on. Attack.
well, I go with schools are supposed to like also set an example or like show what the real world is like. So I mean that's not.
Thank you. What is more important in a library? Realism is the way the world is. What is idealism? The way you want it to be. What should and want it to be? They're both opinions, they're both desires. Same thing. As is. No, come on, your favorite word, Josiah. Ought. Very good. Realism. I know. Realism is the realm of is. Idealism is the realm of should. This is the way the world is. This is the way the world should be. In your history class, where are you? Is. and was. In your English class, where are you? You probably mix a little bit of idealism, but hopefully your English class is more realism than anything else also. Your social studies class probably mixes a little bit of idealism in there as well. But the point of education is not necessarily, I mean, we do teach you what you should think. But I like to think that in my class, I'm trying more just to tell you how to think, what the tools are for dealing with the real world. And Robbie's counter is perfect. Sure. How do you deal with this? You say it's overly idealistic and students need to see the real world. Can anybody extrapolate from that and explain it even more? What happens if we don't, or something else?
Well, I was just going to elaborate on realism.
Go ahead.
We always show students how to be example.
Yes.
Then they will never have the consequences of their actions.
Bingo. What are we ignorant to? We are ignorant to the consequences of poor choices. So, Sarah, I'll expand for a little bit on your idea by asking a question. If I only show positive behavior, does that mean that students will never act negatively?
No, they just won't be educated on.
So let me put it this way to expand once again. If I never teach kids about sex, I never make references about sex, does that mean they will never encounter sexual activity? No. Absolutely not. Correct. Perfect. So their ignorance lies in the consequences of poor choices. Also lies in the threat of the world. I can't imagine in today's society, but this really happening, but imagine a student who honestly believes when a drug dealer says, hey, this is safe for you, that they believe it's safe. Oh, really? It's safe and it's healthy and it's all organic? Oh, that's awesome. I'll try some, sure. I think that students, even when they say, yes, I'll try some drugs, are pretty well educated about the consequences. They might be acting like idiots, but they've been notified. They've been notified about that threat. This is one counter-argument. Everything that I've just expressed is exactly what should go into those 200 words. Focus tightly on a specific point, and that specific point is where Robbie brought our attention, and that's proving the warrant false. We haven't even addressed the grounds. We haven't addressed anything else. Let's prove that warrant false. Schools need to be realistic, not idealistic. That's one. Anybody have another counter-argument? Jake, you look like you might be raising your hand there.
I was thinking about grounds.
Okay, what about the grounds?
Many books of Untitled Chapter will set a positive example for students. There will be other books.
Ah, excellent. So other books will harm as well, but let me deal with that one for a moment. Other books also harm. Let me use the drug analogy again, Jake. Let's say there are 5 common drugs that high school students use and harm themselves with. Let's say that heroin is one of them. Should I get rid of heroin? But there are others. There are others that cause harm too. Shouldn't I still get rid of heroin? What if I can only get rid of heroin? Should I do it? Well, you know, take your pick: cocaine, marijuana, ecstasy, blah blah blah, whatever. Okay, so let's go for a benign one. Let's say marijuana. Let's say out of the 5 drugs that Southview High School students abuse the most, I'm going to get rid of marijuana, but I can only get rid of marijuana. Should I still do it? So this argument doesn't work very well. Do you see how? Because if I have 5 negative influences and I can only get rid of one, I should still get rid of that one. Okay? So, Shelby, what have we got?
I was also thinking you could put, like, shouldn't the parents be making a positive example rather than someone else? Or the parents could even not let their children read the book.
Oh, okay, so we maybe make a reference to what we talked about yesterday, saying the parents have a way out by preventing their kids. But here's my response to that argument. Some parents would say stocking it in the library is implicitly endorsing it as good, and that's sending a message to kids that they get even if they don't read the book. It's kind of a tricky argument, but some parents would say, I don't even want my kid to know it's there. I don't even want my kid to have any sort of access to it. Could you imagine a high school student going behind their parents' back? I know it's hard to imagine, but think for a moment a high school teenager actually keeping information or possibly even lying to their parents. Can you imagine that? Yes, okay, you're supposed to nod your head. Yes, say yes. Shelby's going to a number of examples in her mind. I don't need to hear the examples, but can you imagine a kid thinking, my parents don't want me to read this book. I can go get it at the library, keep it in my locker at school. Can you imagine them doing that? Absolutely. Sarah, you're all over it. Come on.
Is it students like they're always taught what's right, they're gonna rebel?
Very good. And if they know that their parents don't want them reading that book,
And they're gonna read it.
one of my favorite pop culture references was, I believe it was Nikki Sixx, one of the members of Motley Crue back in the 80s, when somebody asked him in an interview, so the PMRC wants to slap warning labels on your records. They want to put parental advisory, explicit lyrics on your albums right on the front. What do you think about that? He says, please, 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 please do it. Throw those warning labels all over my records. Guess what will happen? More people will buy them. He says, please put the warning labels all over the place. I want them because more people will buy them. You're absolutely right. Kids want to rebel. So we're still on the argument that we've got to get rid of it in the libraries. We still haven't countered. So far we have one really strong counter argument. Sarah?
I was just gonna put in just one more thing.
Yeah.
If like most likely if parents don't like attract attention to a certain book, most likely their kids aren't gonna read it. Well, I mean, I think they're probably not gonna go in and like search for this book and think, oh, I have no idea about it. Parents point it out and then say that it's bad.
Mhm.
It's like that. They're gonna look for it. They're gonna find it and read it.
Sure, and my parents were fairly liberal. They didn't really prevent me from doing all that much. But I do remember my mother specifically telling me, and I was way too young, I was like 10 or 11, that I was not allowed to watch The Exorcist, which is if you're not familiar with it, big horror film, early 70s, pretty important. She told me I was not allowed to watch it, and that just piqued my interest. Not at that point, but eventually, yes. That just piqued my interest all the more. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas probably if she'd said, hey, this is a great family movie, let's sit down and watch it, I probably would have said, no, thanks, I got something else to do. Okay, different idea. Connor.
You could attack the grounds by saying you wouldn't set a positive example.
Okay.
Because it's just saying if something's bad, just ignore it. Don't like you have to at least notice it's there. You can't just be like, you're not allowed to read this. That's expressing an opinion that's actually setting a bad example.
So you are saying that this is false because banning something because we disagree with it or think it's harmful is actually a negative example for students. The head in the sand mentality is something we don't want to teach students. We want to teach them to look at the world and to see it as it is, right? Good. So this is a variation on the realism argument. It just takes the realism argument and transposes it to the grounds. So it says, yeah, and the grounds is false for the same reason. Excellent. Zach.
I think you're gonna say that students will learn about this stuff outside of school anyway, and that at least in school there'll be a teacher telling them.
Ha ha ha. Thank you, Zach. Now we have a pretty new argument. Let's backtrack and see what we've had up until Zach's point. We've had the realism argument. The argument that students need to see the world the way it is. Now I've got another argument. Press delete, please, Zach. Give me a blank screen. Thank you. The safety of the classroom. We discussed this a little bit yesterday. I believe. Let's expand it or review today. Do you want, imagine your parents, do you want your children learning about sex? No, I didn't ask what's required. I asked, do you want your children learning about sex?
As long as it's like the right way.
Hold on. I am a parent. I want my daughter learning about sex.
Sometime in your life, your parents want you to learn
Oh,
about
well,
sex.
yeah.
Yeah.
Learn about it.
To learn about it. I didn't say, I'm not going that far, all right? I'm just saying, do I want my daughter to learn about sex? Absolutely. I want her to understand, and I want her to know about sex, sexuality, and sexual behavior. I want her to have an encyclopedic knowledge on the subject. I want her to know everything there is to know, and I want that information to be accurate. Where do I want her to learn it? School or me? Safety of the classroom. In a classroom, why is it safe? You have a teacher. And that teacher is hopefully not only mature and responsible, but also competent and knowledgeable. What else makes it safe?
With other people their age, their experience,
Oh, good. So there is the comfort of peers. What else makes this safe? There are rules. You've got an adult guide, you have peers, you have rules, and hopefully you have access through curricular materials to the truth. Not disinformation, but real information. You have a textbook that gives accurate information. The argument goes like this. This is the place where I want my kids learning about sex, where I want my kids learning about drugs. What else? Violence. What else? Bullying. What else? Come on, To Kill a Mockingbird, folks. Thank you. And discrimination generally. What was that? Profanity. This is where I want them to learn about profanity, how to use it, when not to use it. This is the... I'm sorry? Profanity? I know... What if you were being kidnapped? That's right.
If you're a little kid, someone's trying to like take you in a store.
Screaming profanity would probably gather some attention, yes. You're right, Connor.
And they know that
Connor,
they're not
that's interesting. That's interesting. Shelby, I'll just weigh in on this subject since we are in the safe classroom environment. I have known a few people in my life who have not and never will swear. They're very rare. The person who decides to not swear and the person who is successful at doing that is very rare. I can think of one person off the top of my head in my entire experience who admits to and is incapable of swearing. And it's not me. It's probably not my daughter. Although I wouldn't know. She's at that age where she probably keeps that from me. But here's my point. Awareness of profanity, that people use it, that people are likely to use it in certain situations, is just a psychological and cultural truth, right? We should admit that truth and understand that all of us live in this culture that uses profanity. All of us are susceptible to doing it. So probably the best idea is to figure out where it would definitely not be acceptable, where it might be acceptable, and to know lines and domains. I really don't think, Shelby, that you should beat yourself up if you use a profane word. No, but this is my point. This is my point. I think that I remember when I was very young, I thought it was a mortal sin. That if I used a profane word, that I would, the world would fall apart and grave consequences would occur. I was so scared about profanity that I thought it was devastatingly harmful. Later on, I learned that it's still inappropriate quite often not very specific and a poor way of expressing yourself, but my head's not going to explode if I use it, right? However, there are certain areas, certain audiences, certain places in this world where you want to be aware of your language. And it's not just profanity, it's a wide range of different types of speaking that you want to be aware of, and you want to control that. Learning that, learning about how people do actually speak profanely, when they speak profanely, what they're meaning about that, how to control that language is something that you should do in the safety of the classroom. You can't do it by ignoring it. Do people use profanity?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're going a lot. That's right. All you got to do is walk in the halls of Southview and you'll hear it.
Learn some new words.
Yeah, you'll learn some new words and some new similes and some new expressions, and you realize that some people you didn't know are actually poets of a type of language that you don't want to understand. But here's the argument. Sorry for that long tangent. The argument is that I want to learn about these facts, realistic facts of society in this safe environment. So if I read The Chocolate War, and The Chocolate War does present me with certain facts. One, teenage boys are interested in sex. Is that a devastatingly new fact for you? No. Teenage boys are often harmful toward each other. Is that a new fact for you? No. That's right. Teenage boys often act in ways that are inappropriate and immature and destructive and harmful. Because it's a boys' school. Sorry, yeah, it's a boys' school. Would it be valuable for us to discuss that and think about it as a group in a safe classroom environment? Josiah? Yeah, Mr. Carr builds a unit around it.
In English and in health.
Yes. I would stand up here and say it is valuable for us to discuss these issues. Just as it is valuable to discuss racism when talking about To Kill a Mockingbird, and for us to discuss censorship when we're talking about Fahrenheit 451. It's valuable for us to discuss these controversial topics in a safe classroom environment. Thus, the Chocolate War has a value, even though it's controversial. And it's a value that we should not deny. That's the safety of the classroom argument. And this is a powerful one too. So we've got two arguments so far. One is the realism argument. The other is the safety of the classroom argument. There's a third. We're back on their argument. Tell me a third way that you could attack them. Connor? We've already done that. Another way to attack the warrant? How?
Like just saying, I know we said, I guess it's really similar to what we said, but like the school library's job isn't to do that. Their only job is to supply books.
Their only job is to supply books. So what you're doing, Connor, is you're talking about the mandate of a library, right? In other words, the purpose of a library, why it exists. But isn't your purpose realism? To accurately depict or to collect knowledge about the real world? Yeah, so it's once again the realism argument. It's expressed very well, and I like the where you're going, but it's just a variation on the same core argument. Shelby?
Yeah, I don't think it's right though.
There's something up here that you can prove false pretty quickly.
I don't think it's right. Never mind.
Josiah?
How's banning going to provide a positive example for them to attend?
Because children imitate negative behavior that they see.
Yeah, but banning it though still in the book.
Jasmine, speak up.
It's like, you know, you ban the book, they still do that.
No, they won't, because children only act negatively when they see negative behavior.
And like, they see people doing it.
You guys aren't reading the sarcasm in my voice. You can prove that false in a heartbeat. The core causal assertion that children will imitate the behavior that they read of in books. If that's true, all of you would be out there burning books. Correct? Why? because you just read it in Fahrenheit 451. If that were true, you folks would be out there engaging in racist behavior because of To Kill a Mockingbird. You would be out there, let's pick some others. Oh, that's right. You'd be, all the girls would be pregnant, underage, out of wedlock. Anything else, Bobby? Yeah, you'd all be on drugs.
You have 8-year-old wizards.
Oh, that's right. There would be 8-year-old wizards running around, and you would be desperately trying to practice those spells on a regular basis. Okay, we're making this a we're making this a little bit ludicrous, but let's get down to the core logic of it. They have said that children just indiscriminately imitate the behavior that they see. You can claim that children are smarter than that. They don't just read something in a book and automatically imitate it. Furthermore, we're not even talking about children necessarily. The evidence that you're looking at, Zach, is coming from which school level? Is it any school level? The ones that I've seen focus usually on junior high and high school. And you could say that those kids are not that stupid. Maybe somebody at the really low grade levels, but this book's not going to be there. So what we're talking about is kids who know better than to just act some way because they see it in a book. Yes?
I was going to say that the point is that people who have children who have very parents who are very bad drinkers and stuff like that, that just popped me right away. Just because their parents drink, their tendency to be frightened of it, they tend to fear alcohol as a result of
But
their
it's interesting, Josiah, and I am obviously an English teacher. I'm by no means a psychologist or sociologist. But from my understanding, it can go either way. So if you have a severely alcoholic abusive parent, you could say, oh my gosh, I am never going to practice that behavior because you have that negative example, and so you could be repelled by it. Or you could become an abusive alcoholic yourself. It could happen either way. But I think the point is that there are so many other factors that go into it that it's not just being exposed to that negative behavior that does it. Do you play any video games, Josiah? Name the most violent one that you play.
Dead Space.
Dead Space. Tell me about it.
You have to
Do you have a gun? Are you shooting things that look like people?
No.
No? What are you shooting?
Zombie, creepy looking.
Zombies look like people.
Not like alien alligator.
Oh, monster-looking things. Do you play any games in which you shoot real people?
Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor. Okay, so these are not just zombies. These are actual real people that you're shooting. Under the auspices of war, to be sure, but you're shooting real people. Should I be afraid that you will shoot me?
Hopefully not.
Probably not. I like to think that I can trust you, Josiah.
Turn into a zombie.
Do you believe that there are some people in this society who would play something like Medal of Honor and it would possibly trigger them to shoot others?
Sure, because I think people are crazy.
So what's the difference between you and them?
I hope I'm not saying. I'm saying.
Here's what I'm getting to, Josiah, and I hope that everybody's following my train of logic here. A dangerous person is a dangerous person. A harmless person is a harmless person. The video games that they're playing and the books that they're reading are not what make them dangerous or harmless. So you could take a violent nut job, put them in a totally sanitary environment with no books or video games that would cause them any harm, and they would still be psychologically violent and aggressive. There are other factors, home, other experiences, that lead to those violent, aggressive tendencies. And from my understanding, and you can do the research on this if you wish, psychologists have not been able to show a causal connection between something like violent video games and violent behavior. They say there are other factors that do it. So the counter-argument is to destroy this, to say, that causal assertion is false, and you can't prove it. Sarah?
I was going to say that there's like, you could say there's just so many, I mean, honestly, like, there's so many negative influences in the world. Hollywood, there's just so much to even name all, you know.
And just think about it, Sarah. Right, your choice to do or not to do drugs, does that depend upon the books that you read? No, it depends upon a number of other factors. Right. Connor?
And like with video just the violent games are, like
Yeah.
aliens, zombies, stuff. Like, I've never seen one walking down the street before.
But you know what to do now if you do.
So, I mean, there's very few video games I think could ever even make someone say, hey, I'm going to go shoot someone. Like Grand Theft Auto, that's the only one that I could even see a resemblance to.
But I still can't imagine kids, teenagers carjacking just because they've read or done played Grand Theft Auto.
I can see that game maybe causing a couple, just to see.
But I would attest that they are already involved in a culture that's pushing them to do that anyway, and the Grand Theft Auto is not the cause. All right. Sorry. Let's. Once again we had a good discussion. This discussion went to some good places. It led to 3 specific counter arguments, looking at Zach's argument about the chocolate war. I want you to realize that you've got 200 words to write tailored to your specific book that channels one or more of these arguments. One would probably be best. Focus.
And that's what I want on Monday is the positive. You're supporting them, right?